With Full Press Hockey Weekly. I'm your host, Jim Berenger, the voice of Full Press Hockey, rocking and rolling with my tag team partner, NWO member, Chris Wassel. Chris, what's going on, buddy?
Good afternoon from the snowy confine. Wait. We can't say that yet. No, no,
Not
no.
yet, not yet. Soon, soon. We'll be
Another
saying
duck
that
call.
about the Stadium Series, the snowy confines of MetLife Stadium.
Snoopy would be truly proud.
He
Uh,
would be. He would be proud. And here's the thing. Look, Stadium Series is going to be great. All these games matters. The points matter, especially for the Devils.
yeah.
Islanders and Flyers, Rangers. The Rangers are on a heater right now, but especially for the Devils because they're chasing Philadelphia, and it's going to be great. It's going to be a great experience for everybody. It's you want to talk about the experience of playing outside and all this stuff, but it is a hockey game with 2 points on the line, and I think for the first time in the incarnation of these outdoor games, these are the most meaningful outdoor games that have been ever played.
Yeah, isn't it funny that like all four teams are in a playoff race of some sort, whether, depending on their sort of, station as we'd like to call it. Um, the Rangers are, yeah, they're on a bit of a heater, but then again, they didn't play anybody this week.
That's true. They didn't. They beat up on the Canadians and lost Blake Wheeler, and now Chris Drury's all three of his mistakes. Yes, they are mistakes, and I don't want to hear at Rangers fans telling me that they weren't mistakes. All three of his mistakes because they poorly managed the cap, came back to bite them in the butt, and they're all gone now. Funny thing, isn't that?
I don't know how I have nothing to do with it.
I know you didn't. I'm just saying. I know you didn't do it,
This
but
time
it's
I
just
actually can't be blamed for it. Although, look, I said this at the beginning of the season on Full Press Hockey that the Rangers would actually have this thing called injuries this year.
and they
It,
did.
the law of averages has to even out somehow a
And
little bit.
look, all the best to Blake Wheeler. Look, that was a horrific injury. It's
Yeah,
similar to what
yeah,
Mikhail
don't-
Servachev
just,
went through.
just
It was
don't look.
awful.
Don't
He's
look.
done for the year, even though they haven't diagnosed it. He's done for the season, like Sergachev. But look, the Rangers in a tight spot, trying to get the Metro Division. Carolina Hurricanes playing a lot better now. The New York Islanders are in a race. New Jersey's in a race. They're all trying to catch Philly, Detroit, so on and so forth. So there's a lot of great games, a lot of great rivalries. We know the history of the area with all these teams. Usually it's the Devils taking on all these teams, and mostly it had to do with the Rangers and Flyers. Yes, the Islanders occasionally played the Devils at the Meadowlands, but I mean, let's be honest, during the 90s, it wasn't really competition. And in the 80s, the Devils did the unthinkable and beat the powerhouse Islanders in 1988. So, I mean, before that, the Islanders just beat up on the Devils and the Rockies and the Kansas City Scouts. But when the Devils became the Devils, it was a whole different ball game. But it's going to be fun to see hockey out there. Interestingly enough, as we record this podcast, Flyers practice moved from 2 to 3 o'clock today. Interesting how that one worked. They played in Toronto, flew in, and oh, by the way, there's a thing called the sun out, and I wouldn't be shocked if they don't get on the ice till like 3:30 until the
Yeah,
shadows are all gone.
this could take a while. For those that don't know, for one, obviously the shadows, but two, there is this nagging sort of wind that is hit the tri-state this morning into early this afternoon. So they may not want to get out on the ice, even though it's
No,
40, even though it's almost 40 degrees outside, mind
I
you.
wouldn't want to get on the ice
It
either.
feels like about 20, so there is a
It,
little.
it, it feels bad out there. Let's be honest. It feels bad out there. Doesn't feel great. But again, it was interesting because originally I heard that the Devils were supposed to be the first ones on the ice today. And
Yes.
it got switched because the Flyers wanted to go first. So, and the Rangers were always in the middle. So the Devil said, and
Come on,
somebody at
Devils.
the league's like,
Come on,
oh, where'd
Devils.
you hear
Get
that?
mad. Get
I was like,
angry.
somebody at the league's like, well, where'd you hear that one from? I said, I was standing here 2 days ago and you're the one that mentioned it.
That often happens, especially with these events. It's like, wait, I said what?
You said what? Yeah, exactly. But it's gonna be a fantastic time. The boys from the Fourth Peter in town. Can't wait to see all those guys again. They were there at the game against LA. -1, Mr. Ryan Payton. But hey, Pates, we'll see you soon. But look, getting down to it, we talk about the Rangers things that get changed. The mess in Columbus, talked about with Russ earlier in the year. talked about it with you earlier in the year. The Columbus Blue Jackets have finally made the coaching change, made the GM change. Jarmo Kekalainen is out after 11 seasons. And look, if you listen to the press conference, John Davidson, he really didn't want to do it. It's like with all these coaching changes with all these teams, they didn't want to do it. But the problem is this team needed to new direction and a new identity, and they needed to get out of this Mike Babcock stench that they have.
Yeah, and it's not easy. It's a pretty deep hole, but at the same time, you have quite a collection of prospects, younger players, and the such. You have potential for prospective newish GMs that are going to be up for this role. And obviously, Davidson's going to have quite a process because look, he has to get this right.
Right, he does.
He at the same time still has to sell enough of these, I don't want to say dead weight assets, but some assets that can fetch you something.
Yeah, that's true.
While giving enough space to the younger players. And that's not going to be an easy balancing act. Right.
No, it's not. I mean, we know Elvis Merzlikins is a guy that's on the trading block. He's got a reasonable contract. I think for him and the organization, I think it's going to be the best thing for them is for him to move on and just get out of there because just too much bad juju around there and there's too many bad memories for him. And a change of scenery will do him good, and we'll explore those options, whether it's New Jersey, whether it's Colorado, whether it's another team that needs a goaltender like LA, Edmonton, somewhere. But I think he wants to be a starter, and I think he's going to be filling that starter's role someplace. So does he want to be a backup someplace for the rest of the year is going to be the question. But you also look like a guy at the captain, like Boone Jenner. Is he a guy that they move as much as he says he doesn't want to leave, and as much as they're not really shopping him, everybody's calling about him, and because he's a hard nosed, versatile player, and he's a player that can fetch you a lot. He's been there through the good years, and he's been there through the lean years. Is he a player that they move?
I think you have to give it a shot. Look, everybody knows this with Boone Jenner. Boone Jenner is immensely a pain in the neck to play against. He can score. He can play a reasonable amount of defense. But there's the back.
Yep.
Always going to be an issue. And look, anybody that knows it remembers it from Mario. Backs are a strange, wonky thing that just cannot be explained. Take it from somebody who, suffers from occasional back pain.
It's very interesting because Mario's back, he'd be out, then he'd come back, he'd look great, then he'd be out again, have to retire, then unretire. Nope. Same with Wayne. Wayne's back was not the same after his injury, too. Yeah. But you look at it, look, Jenner is a great leader for this team, regardless of what happened in the offseason. And again, I think that was part of the demise of Jarmo Kekalainen and JD saying he had back surgery, too, which is why he wasn't around the team. But it was a mutual decision that they came to. And look, I think Kekalainen's overall tenure in Columbus, I think you can view it as a success. This year, notwithstanding. Like, this year was I don't want to say law of diminishing returns, but it was like one of those wonky years. You hire Babcock, then you fire Babcock. You hire the guy that you've passed over twice. The players don't care to play for him. Nobody wants to play for him. They're tuning him out. Pascal Vincent's not going to be there at the end of the year. It's like there's a whole culture change that really needs to be done in that locker room. We've talked about Vancouver, Calgary, Winnipeg. Dubois out of there. And you got Roslovic back in that trade. Where else do they look? And, look, the story of Jarmo Kekalainen's tenure in Columbus is one of he went all in. They tried to make a run in 2019. They lost to Boston. They've always played Pittsburgh tough in the playoffs. They beat Toronto in the quote-unquote play-in round. And look, you beat Tampa. You sweep Tampa in 2019. And look, whoever won that 4 overtime game in the bubble was winning that series. If Columbus won that game against Tampa in game
They
one,
would have won the series.
they would have won the series again. But that's what propelled Tampa to their Stanley Cup. But if you look at it, they went all in with, they kept Duchesne, they kept Panarin, they kept all these guys, they traded for these guys. They let some of these guys walk for nothing, didn't really get anything for them. But it was a general manager that decided, you know what, we're going to have own rentals. We're going to take a shot at this thing because we believe in this team. And don't forget, Jenner was just a young cat at that time. You had Tortorella coaching this team. It was a different vibe. I think Dubinsky was still playing or hanging around the team. Like they had a team that could compete. And again, they lost a couple of overtime games to Boston too, and that could have swung the series. So Columbus's time under Jarmo Kekalainen, who I believe was a first-time GM in the National Hockey League,
Went all bad.
it wasn't all bad. It was not all bad. Look, he took a shot with Johnny Gaudreau. Very surprising signing. But again, showing the fan base we're going to try to make something happen here. Line A really hasn't worked out. And, shout out to Elaine for getting some things started on Twitter. And, now everybody's donating to Patrick Line A, and all the best to him because, you just don't want that kind of stuff to happen. Everybody's got to take care of their mental health. But I think if you get a little change of culture, Line A comes back, get Gaudreau going, get the right players around him. You have that core there led by Fantilli. Columbus is going to be a good team in a couple of years.
Yeah, they still got to figure out defense.
Yeah, I mean, David Severson withstanding, not going to happen.
Between him and Provorov, nope.
No. But I got a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think, I know there's been a lot of talk about David Jiricek, right? And the way they've handled him. He's down in the minors. He should be up. He should be playing his role. Do you think that was part of the reason why Kekalainen got relieved of his duties?
It could have been the final straw. Nobody's going to really know, and no one's going to say anything. I mean, in talking to beat writers in Columbus, it's like, well, I mean, again, over 11 years, a lot of things happened. And
Right.
especially post-pandemic, Columbus really hasn't been the same.
No, they have not.
That's why Kekalainen took that shot with Gaudreau in the first place, was because the team needed an obvious jolt. And okay, you tried there. You tried to get Provorov and try to sort of reignite him. You did the Volkswagen signed and trade for Severson. You hope that Werenski could stay healthy.
He didn't.
I mean, there's a lot of things that didn't work out for him, but at the same time, there's a lot of things that he could have done the last 2 years. So
right.
The thing is, you have to take his whole 11-year tenure as a body of work and compare it to the other Columbus GMs, which he was light years better than.
Yep. He was. Look, there were some decisions that he made that weren't great, but Mike Babcock hiring and then the fiasco that was. And I think that's it. Like this whole season's just been, okay, we got to get out of this Mike Babcock thing and figure it out. And I think once the season's over, fresh start in the offseason, I think you're going to see a different Columbus Blue Jackets team next year. And even JD talked about it. He said, look, we need to figure out how we can finish games better. We've been in games. We're playing well, but we're just not getting over that finish line. And I think they're going to look for a new coach, and I think they're going to look for a new GM, and I think they're going to try to get out of this Mike Babcock stench that's been left around this team. And if they can trade off assets, great. If they can't, well, they can't, and they'll figure some things out at the draft. I mean, again, they have nice young pieces coming, and now it's on JD and company to figure out what their deadline is going to be.
Yeah, I mean, look, Fantilli has turned out to actually pan out so far, and he's only going to get better. I mean, sure, it's like certain players that teams took reaches on that are now getting their legs, and magically they're producing. Well, gee, I mean, people have to give time to these players.
Yes, they do. We've talked about it.
It's like, development is a very tenuous thing, and
it's been a topic of conversation on this show, particularly when we had another person here, Mike Straw, who we've always talked about. We've talked about at length when Vigneault was coaching the Rangers. We've seen it in New Jersey. We're now seeing it in Montreal.
Mhm.
Put these young players in positions to succeed, and they are.
You mean don't Keiko them?
No,
Don't
no, don't do that. Don't do that.
don't
It's a bad
Keiko
idea.
them. Don't Holtz them. Okay, I mean we
Don't
have a list for
Lafreniere
probably each
them.
team.
Don't. Well, the big one is don't need a rider them. That one
Ooh.
goes back a ways. But Islanders fans know that you don't need a rider was misused when he was there. You could
Oh,
even
yeah,
say don't Adam Larson them.
you could. And that's the thing. I mean, look, if you expect every team to hit on 100% of the players that they develop,
You're
it
wrong.
doesn't happen. This is like, for lack of a better term, it is like baseball in the sense if you get 1 out of 3, you're doing pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, look, not everybody's going to be Tampa Bay, where you had a crop of talent that came along at the right time. But again, they were all developed in the AHL. Same with Detroit for how many years? New Jersey did the same thing for years. They
Yeah.
developed their kids in the AHL. And then when they were ready, they came up.
And people forget those like mid and late 90s Devils
I
teams.
mean, Madden, Gomez.
Yeah, there's a mile long list, you
It,
know.
it starts with those two. Rafalski, you can't even say because he was a free agent out of Finland.
Yeah, people forget that Rafalski signed from overseas. They're like,
Yeah.
"What?
Yeah.
He's
They
American.
didn't,
He was
yeah, they
from
was a free,
Michigan." And
it
it's
was
like,
on,
no,
yeah,
no,
he was an unsigned free agent. Like,
unsigned free agent.
yeah, like he signed from, yeah, it's crazy what the Devils were able to find and develop, and the Giantas and the Parisis, and the list goes on of guys, the Eliashes, the Sikoras, and again, there's a laundry list. You go to Detroit, like how long did Datsuk and Zetterberg take in the A before they came up? You know,
Russian
it
five.
yeah, the Russian five took, and then you go to the Tampas with the Johnsons, the Palats, the Kucherovs. Again, there's a litany of guys.
LA with with Kopitar to a
Kopitar.
point, and then you had certain player Grumble, the Foley.
Yeah.
Once
I
was
mean,
really good.
and then Zadina's finally turning into a star that he is in San Jose. But again, it's about developing your prospects. And look, I know I caused trouble yesterday on Twitter.
Oh, you're gonna be forgiven. It's
What?
part of life. At
I
least
mean,
at least you
was
didn't
that
make it.
really? But was
At
that?
least you didn't make an attendance joke that fell flat.
Yeah, but did I really cause trouble because, or was I spitting
No.
facts? Because let's be honest. Well, everybody's like, well, Slavkovsky lost time to COVID. Oh, did he really? I wasn't responding to it, but did he really? Because I remember him playing overseas when the National Hockey League was not playing. He was playing in a World Junior tournament. He was playing at the World Championships. He was playing in the league that he was playing in before he was drafted.
Hmm.
Meanwhile, Jack Hughes played 56 games. Then he played 49 games the year Slavkovsky got drafted.
Mm-hmm.
Did he really miss that much time?
No, you really didn't.
Like that's what my point was Jack Hughes lost time to injury. Okay, fine. They both missed time to injury. But Jack lost 2 half seasons to COVID when he was coming on as a player,
Mm-hmm.
which stifled his development.
So
And he
stifled
really
development, stifled even he said his strength training
right.
wasn't a
And
secret.
then
Work
last
on
year
it.
was the year that he broke out.
Yeah. And he makes no bones about it. He still has to work on it. Like he said, he was probably put a good year to year and a quarter behind because of COVID and injury. He's not sitting there making excuses. He's like, this is just how, this is how it is. He's like, if you add it up, I lost this much time. If you add that part up, I lost this much time. Okay.
It makes
Um,
sense. And I think the next step in his development is learning to be a little bit more sure on the ice. Just a little bit. Like, look, I don't mind players showing emotion, but he's going to start to get that Crosby reputation when Crosby had earlier in the year, complaining to the officials, becoming a whiner, looking for all this stuff. Let it go.
all part of the
Let
process.
it let it go because you're still a young player in the league and the referees are not giving you that call.
You're not getting it.
You're
Look, let's
not
be honest,
getting
the
it.
Devils haven't gotten these calls in a decade. They're not going to get these calls anytime.
And the more I watched that Arvidsson Hughes play out of the box, because I was there when the Kings played the Devils on Thursday night, I saw that play. At first, I thought it was a penalty, and then I looked at the replay.
Closer.
Arvidsson played great defensively on that play. He was awesome defensively. He got Hughes to his backhand, and then Hughes missed an open net.
Mm-hmm.
Rang the post. He got the rebound and got the post. And then he starts chirping at the official as the play's going back the other way, breaks his sticks. The referee didn't see it, or else he would have gotten a penalty. Look, it's great to show emotion. It's great to stick up for yourself. He did that. The rest of it is immaturity on his part. I know people are there to pay him, as he used the quote, people pay me to see me play. But unfortunately, you have to be mature about these things. Let it go. Because they're going to make good defensive plays on you. Now it's your turn to figure out how you adjust to that.
Yeah. How do you counter?
Because the Carolina Hurricanes took them away in the second round of the playoffs.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Now you have to adjust. Like I said, I'm off the scrum on the side with Arvidsson is fine. You can't chirp to the official because it makes it worse. Because then you're not getting a call.
No.
Because you're going to get the reputation that Sidney Crosby had for years when he first came into the league. And then what did Crosby do? He just let it go and let his play dictate what was going to get called.
Said it best many times. And Aerosmith said it too. Let the music do the talking. You let your play do the talking.
Exactly. Let your play do the talking. Let everything do the talking. So for me, that's what Hughes has got to do. New Jersey, you look at it. We mentioned Merzlikins as a potential option. The Devils in goaltending. This has been a big topic of debate over the last several months, but it's picked up over the last week because the Devils and Jacob Markstrom had a deal in place. It fell through. The Devils in Nashville are looking to make a deal. I heard today from a source that the deal in place for UC Saros would be Carrier, Saros, Preds retain 50% on Carrier for Mercer, Casey, Schmid, first this year and a second next year.
See you in a few weeks.
Yep.
It'll come down.
It'll come down.
It'll come down for two reasons. One, there was a certain stick throwing incident from the Devils game. Saros apparently throwing it at Roman Josi that can be sort of confirmed if you go through the video long enough. It is not a secret that Saros is not a fan of Brunette system.
No.
Nashville players do not apparently know how to play Brunette system at all at times. And you see it. You saw it the first 40 minutes of last night's game against
when they
Dallas.
got smoked.
They got beyond smoked.
They got smoked.
Dallas just blitzed, smoked, barbecued. You name it. It was done, and it was ugly. So you thought the 46 shots from the Devils was ugly. This was far worse.
They put up a 9 spot. Nashville. 9 spot.
And it could have easily been, and I'll say this, it could have easily been 12, 13 without a problem.
Without a problem.
Nashville was that bad, and they've been this bad, up and down and bad for a while.
They have been. They have been. But here's the thing. So you have Saros, you have Markstrom, and we know. So going back to my December 9th tweet, and yes, I'm going to reference myself here because, well, hey, I had it first. And we like to brag a little bit on the show, right, Chris?
A little bit.
A little bit. So when Dougie was first put on IR, I said that the Devils were going to need retention help, regardless of who they were trading for, whether it was a defenseman, whether it was a goaltender. This team needed retention help, not only for this year, but next year. Why? Well, when you move Dougie to LTIR, he's going to come off next year on LTIR. That means $9 million goes back on the books. Yes, I'm breaking this down simply for a lot of people out there. I don't want to come off as condescending, but some of you need to know how basic math works. You have a $6 million goaltender, but the cap's going to go up, what, 5 million, 6 million, maybe?
Not as much as people were hoping for. Let's put
Right.
that.
So say between the 4 and 7 range, somewhere between there. So if you take all that money on, you don't have that much money left to sign potential free agents. Hence why you need retention help. The question now becomes is how much were the Devils asking? 50%, 30%, 40. It does we don't know what the number was.
Depends on who
But if it
you
was
talk to.
depends on who you talk with. But if they need 50%, wouldn't it make sense to get a third team involved? But that's going to cost you a draft pick. And did the Devils want to give up draft capital?
That's the bigger dilemma.
Right.
And that's going to be this way with several teams as the trade deadline approaches. Almost like kind of like a sliding abacus type of game where it's like, we have enough dollars here to make this move, but maybe make another move on the
Right.
back end.
Right. Exactly. So
And then
the
they're
Devils,
next year.
right, exactly, because you have to look to next year because Hamilton's off, LTIR, and you have to see, okay, well, is Toffoli staying? What about Mercer's extension? And then you have to look down the road because you know Nemec is getting an extension and Luke Hughes is getting an extension. And how much are you paying these guys? But is Mercer a part of this team moving forward? We don't know. Is that a player that they don't want to part with? But here's the thing. You have options, right? Gibson's got hurt in Ottawa per Murray Pam. So Gibson's kind of off the radar right now, and he's injury prone. So I'm not sure teams are going to want to pay the price to get him at the deadline. Maybe it's a summer move if the Devils are still interested, if they have not solved their goaltending issue by that point. And they could resolve it. Maybe they don't resolve it. Maybe it waits till the summer. You got to think, though, the way it sounds, what we've been hearing is they're going to be very aggressive at the deadline, and they're going to want to get this done. And they want to get it done because they still believe that they're in this thing. So you have Jacob Markstrom, which I think is the perfect fit, Saros, Elvis Merzlikins. That's your top crop. Then there's kind of everybody else, which are kind of lateral moves, in my opinion, which are the Jake Allens, the Capo Kakinens. I think you would put Marc-Andre Fleury in that top upper echelon as well, that top tier. But again, it comes down to, does Fleury want to see the Penguins again? Because that's why he didn't go to Washington.
But would he see Pittsburgh?
Well, I'm saying, but the Devils could always play a backup goalie that night if they're playing Pittsburgh. So that's not a big deal.
You're going to be that late in the season where it's not as much. Yeah, it's a slightly different dynamic, but it's still kind of the same question.
And just perusing the schedule, they play the Penguins once.
Yeah, they play
in April, right?
You could play Dawes or something.
Yeah, you could play Dawes, whoever. Yeah, like they play them one more time. If that's the route they want to go to, and if Minnesota falls out of everything, which they're kind of in the playoff mix right now, so I'm not sure that Fleury's going to want to waive his no trade clause to go to New Jersey. But again, you look at the San Jose goalies. They had Mackenzie Blackwood. You could have kept him if you thought he was the answer. He's not, and we know he can play good on bad teams. He's seen that in New Jersey. We saw that in New Jersey. So really, it comes down to: are you willing to pay a price for a guy like Jacob Markstrom or Juuse Saros? That's the $1 million question. Do you wait long enough to where the price comes down? But I don't think the price is coming down. I think it's only going up because there are so many teams that need goaltending help.
And that's a big problem. All right, so if you look at the really bad math here,
yeah,
as of this moment, Minnesota's 5 points out of a playoff spot.
That's tough.
basically 60 is your cutoff. And I still can't believe this, but yeah, the St. Louis Blues are in a playoff spot right now.
I know.
So who gets coach of the year in St. Louis?
It ain't Craig Berube. Oh,
It ain't Berube.
First of all, St. Louis ain't getting coach of the year. All right.
I'd argue for it though at this point. If they make the playoffs,
I mean, you could argue for it. You could definitely put
because they've done it despite
Bannister. You could definitely put Bannister in the running, but Rick Tocchet and or John Tortorella are running away with this thing.
Rick Tocchet should not be in the NHL.
Well, we know that. So
yeah, there's no way he should be able to. There should be no award, no this, no that. You know what?
I could argue a million guys deserve coach of the year instead of giving it to guys that turn around teams. It's like my beef with stars of the game. That, by the way, the attending media do not vote on.
Yes.
FYI. Like,
yeah,
we don't vote on it anymore. Nobody votes on
There's
it.
a reason why. The Keith Jones fiasco at Marty Brenner's 500 win was one of them.
Right.
There's a bunch of them.
The guy who scores the game-winning goal, whether it's in overtime or in regulation, does not deserve the number one star. He deserves a star. I'll give him a star. But if there's a player that's performed better in that game, you should just not automatically give that guy a star.
So, oh, by the way, and I know this is an extreme long is not an extreme long shot.
Right.
Keep in mind, for a technical sense, the Devils are not that far out of a playoff spot.
I know they're 2 points behind the Detroit Red Wings.
So that's not bad. So
no, considering Detroit's lost 2 straight and the Devils had a chance to pick up at least a point when they played LA.
But you have to remember the fundamental theory of New Jersey this year. You expect them to win all 4 games in a week where they play in 6 nights.
Nope, not happening. And
it's shocking that they won back-to-back games. So you have to know the loss was coming.
But the thing was, you could see it because LA was the better team through the first period. The Devils finally found their legs. If it wasn't for Nico Daws, the game would have been over in the first period. Like, it straight up would have been. They got outshot 13-5, and the power play goal is the only reason they scored. They gave them a shorthanded goal and a power play goal at the end. But LA was the better team. LA was the better team. Plain and simple, LA played better. New Jersey played good, but they didn't play good enough to win. You could see they were tired because they had the day off. They flew home. They played 2 really good back-to-back games, and they wanted to win the back-to-back games. Now these games against Western Conference opponents are not throwaway games by any means. The points matter in the standings, but it's okay to lose to a Western Conference team.
Not as bad.
Saturday is a must-win because you can gain ground.
It's a must.
It's a must-win. So, as the old sports reporters would use, my one final thing, my one big thing to close out with was that rant on the stars of the game. But the Stadium Series is going to be fun. The rumors continue to fly around New Jersey about everything. They're flying around what Boston's doing, what Montreal's doing, what Calgary's doing.
Yeah, guess who's the first in the East?
Yeah, like Boston's first in the East.
Team where they thought that, oh God, they're gonna have all these players that are out for like a quarter or a third of the season.
No,
it's fine.
No, they're doing fine. But here's the thing: Stadium Series is gonna be fun. The deadline's kicking up. We got our trade deadline special March 8th in the afternoon.
Crazy, 3 weeks.
3 weeks to the 3 weeks to the deadline. Calgary team to watch, San Jose team to watch. The goalie market, things are heating up. We haven't had a trade in a while. You got to figure something's coming eventually. I doubt it's today. I doubt it's Friday or Saturday just because what's going on. But you never know.
Later next week, you see something.
I agree. I think they're going to work some things out. It's the holidays around here. But I think something's brewing, Chris.
It's always something brewing.
Always something brewing. But this has been the Full Press NHL podcast in association with Full Press Hockey Weekly. I've been your host, Jim Berenger, voice of Full Press Hockey, rocking and rolling with the NWO member, Chris Wassel. Guys, get it iTunes, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast. Take care. Enjoy the game.